In today's world, where messages travel faster than our emotions, love can feel more fragile than ever. Constant notifications, curated images, and unspoken expectations create a subtle distance between hearts, even when people are physically close. The gap between the love we imagine and the love we experience can leave us feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, and searching for where true connection begins. Amid this modern complexity, Stoicism offers a guiding compass for relationships. It does not teach us to harden our hearts or suppress feeling. Instead, it encourages steadiness, clarity, and mindful presence. Rooted in ancient wisdom, Stoic philosophy shows us how to cultivate resilience within ourselves, so that our love can withstand challenges without losing warmth or depth. It invites us to nurture patience, understanding, and awareness, allowing love to breathe, grow, and endure. Through these principles, we can build connections that are grounded, compassionate, and deeply human, capable of thriving even in a world that moves faster than the heart can follow. In the quiet spaces between messages, promises, and misunderstandings, there is a simple truth. Love in the modern world carries a weight our ancestors never had to hold. Expectations rise quickly. Emotions overflow easily, and the pace of life rarely pauses long enough for the heart to catch its breath. From here, we turn to the foundation of Stoicism, a practice that teaches you to meet your emotional storms with a calm center. It reminds you that strength in love is not measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how deeply you understand your own nature. When you see yourself clearly, connection becomes less about clinging and more about clarity. Now imagine standing inside a relationship where tensions rise, misunderstandings linger, and fears of loss echo louder than the voice of reason. Stoicism guides you inward, urging you to observe without rushing to react. It encourages you to see that your inner state shapes the very quality of your bond, long before any words are spoken. But there's another layer beneath this. Stoicism was never meant to detach you from emotion. Instead, it helps you recognize which emotions arise from truth and which arise from the stories your mind creates. It offers something rare, a way to return to yourself, even when the world around you feels overwhelming. What changes is the environment. Noise grows louder, distractions multiply, and emotional pressures intensify. Stoicism speaks to these inner struggles with timeless simplicity. You are not the turbulence of a single difficult moment. This awareness becomes a compass in relationships, guiding your reactions, softening your tone, and helping you choose presence over defensiveness. Now imagine a moment of conflict, perhaps a heated discussion or a silence that lasts too long. Stoicism encourages you to breathe before you respond, to step back and witness the emotion without becoming it. But there's another dimension often overlooked. Stoicism also celebrates compassion. Its greatest teachers understood that kindness is not weakness. It is the disciplined choice to hold your humanity steady when it is easier to let anger take over. In love, this practice becomes a quiet form of strength, one that deepens trust and allows vulnerability to surface gently. As you walk further into this philosophy, you encounter the question of control, a central principle that redefines how you approach relationships. You cannot control your partner's emotions, choices, or past. You can only cultivate your own responses with mindfulness and intention. This shift releases the pressure that so often strains love, allowing connection to grow naturally instead of being forced. Now imagine applying this understanding in moments of uncertainty. Instead of fearing loss, you ground yourself in the present moment, knowing that love rooted in awareness is stronger than love driven by attachment. From here, we turn to the reflective questions that Stoicism invites. How often do we mistake temporary discomfort for permanent damage? It shows you how your expectations shape your experience, how your fears distort your perception, and how your longing for certainty can create tension where none is needed. Through this mirror, you begin to see yourself not as flawed, but as a work in progress, capable of steady growth. As you absorb these insights, consider how Stoicism reframes love. Instead of seeing love as something fragile, easily disturbed by emotion, it becomes a practice, a daily commitment to inner steadiness, mindful connection, and compassionate presence. Stoicism teaches you that love is not found in grand gestures, but in the quiet choices you make moment after moment. Now, imagine a relationship built with this foundation. Conversations become clearer, misunderstandings soften before they grow, and emotional storms lose their ability to shake the core of your connection. This is not idealistic fantasy. It is the natural result of two people who learn to hold their inner world with care. But there's one last question that anchors this entire journey. What does Stoicism reveal about the way you show up in love? Not the perfection you expect from others, but the presence you cultivate within yourself. These questions turn your attention inward, where all meaningful change begins. Stoicism becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes a practice that helps you understand yourself, meet your partner with compassion, and navigate modern love with inner steadiness. Its ancient insights remind you that real strength grows from clarity, not reaction. When you love with awareness, your heart expands with intention and becomes capable of deeper, steadier connection with each mindful choice you make today. It was a time when empires rose and fell rapidly, and ordinary people lived with a constant awareness that life could change without warning. And the pressure to stay connected in a world that rarely slows down. From here, we turn to the origins of Stoic philosophy, which emerged not in peaceful gardens but in crowded marketplaces, bustling ports, and cities marked by political tension. It was born during an age when people needed a way to remain steady amid chaos. Much like you may seek inner calm in the face of emotional storms today, Stoicism became a compass, a still, reliable guide pointing the mind toward what truly lies within your control. Now imagine ancient Athens and later Rome, where merchants, soldiers, scholars, and travelers all crossed paths. These cities were filled with uncertainty, economic shifts, constant threats from rival states, and the daily unpredictability of survival. In that environment, fear and desire often dictated choices. In T-Sensei, the philosophy resembles the quiet resilience needed to sustain modern love, where patience, understanding, and inner strength become the core of lasting connection. As Stoicism expanded, thinkers like Zeno, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus shaped its foundations. Yet it was Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus who carried its essence forward with depth that still guides people today. These experiences mirrored the emotional struggles couples face when connection feels threatened or misunderstood. Despite ruling one of the most powerful empires on earth, he wrote privately about humility, patience, and the discipline of examining one's own thoughts. In his reflections, you find a gentle reminder that power offers no shield against emotional complexity. The heart remains fragile unless it is trained to understand itself. From here, we shift to Epictetus, who lived as a slave before becoming a revered philosopher. His teachings emerged not from privilege but from the resilience he cultivated through constraint and hardship. He emphasized that you may not control your circumstances, but you always control your response. This perspective shapes the way you approach love, reminding you that emotional responsibility begins with awareness, not blame. There is another movement within this philosophy that often goes unnoticed: Stoicism encourages you to look at the world without distortion, to see events as they are, not as fear or desire paints them. In relationships, this clarity becomes essential. When emotions run high, it is easy to misinterpret intention, to imagine threats that do not exist, or to project old wounds onto new moments. Stoicism invites you to pause and look again. Now imagine standing in a moment of tension with someone you love. A misunderstanding surfaces, small at first but swelling quickly. Without clarity, reactions spiral. But through Stoic practice, you learn to observe the feeling before responding. You recognize that your thoughts, not the event, fuel your emotional intensity. This recognition alone can soften conflict and open a path back to connection. As you explore this ancient wisdom, you notice recurring themes: discipline, compassion, patience, and self. These principles shaped the lives of those who practiced Stoicism centuries ago, guiding them through uncertainty, loss, and the complexity of human relationships. These same themes offer modern couples a framework for emotional steadiness, especially in moments when fear or frustration tries to take the lead. From here, we turn to the central idea of control. The Stoics understood that suffering often comes from trying to manage what you cannot change. This applies profoundly to love. You cannot control your partner's thoughts or choices. You cannot remove their past or predict their future. But you can choose your own attitude, your tone, your presence. These small decisions become the foundation of emotional stability. Now imagine what love feels like when each person understands this principle. Arguments lose their sharp edges, expectations soften. Conversations become more honest, because neither partner feels forced to shape the other. Instead, both ground themselves in what is theirs alone. The ability to respond with clarity and kindness, even when emotions rise. There is another layer to consider: Stoicism's integration of compassion. Contrary to the stereotype of emotional detachment, Stoic thinkers valued empathy deeply. They believed humans share a universal bond shaped by vulnerability and empathy. In relationships, this perspective helps you see your partner not as an adversary in conflict, but as another soul navigating their own internal storms. From here, we trace the thread that links ancient wisdom to the emotional realities of our lives today. For more than 2,000 years, Stoicism has endured because it reveals a timeless truth. Inner steadiness is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. It encourages you to look inward, not to retreat, but to understand how your inner landscape shapes the way you love. Imagine bringing this awareness into ordinary moments when stress pulls you away from presence, when fear invents stories of not being enough, or when impatience muffles tenderness. In those moments, Stoicism becomes a quiet reminder to return to yourself, to breathe, and to meet life with intention. This is not emotional suppression, it is self-mastery. As we close this exploration of Stoicism's origins, one question remains. Why does this ancient philosophy still guide the way we love? Perhaps because the world keeps shifting, yet the heart still seeks steadiness. Stoicism helps cultivate that steady, compassionate clarity. A philosophy only truly lives when it touches the way we behave each day. Stoicism is no exception. It is not meant to sit untouched in books, not meant to sound poetic, and certainly not meant to become a mask of emotional coldness. This philosophy gains meaning only when it reshapes the way we love, the way we speak to those we cherish, the way we stay steady in emotional storms, and the way we create peace in our most vulnerable moments. Stoicism becomes real when it helps us build a love that is deep, responsible, and awake. In modern relationships, much of the pain we experience doesn't stem from a lack of love, but from a lack of emotional direction. We love intensely, expect quickly, react impulsively, and end up hurt by things that were never truly within our control. Stoicism encourages us to slow our pace, to recognize the boundary between what is ours to carry and what is not, so we can love with greater balance. It does not promote emotional numbness. Instead, it teaches us to face our feelings with clarity, rather than being swept away by emotions like a sudden storm. We learn to observe them, understand them, and respond with intention. One of the first steps in turning Stoic ideas into action is learning to listen instead of react. When someone we love says something that wounds us, our instinct is usually to defend, to argue, or to freeze into silence. Stoicism reminds us to pause. A small pause, but a meaningful one. This pause becomes a quiet space where we can hear what is said, and also what is still unspoken. It is a moment where the heart stays in its true form, not becoming a weapon, not becoming a shield. When we listen deeply, we hear not only the other person, we hear ourselves, what inside us feels hurt, what feels afraid, what has not yet been fully understood. This leads to a second practice: understanding instead of judging. Marcus Aurelius once noted that people act based on the beliefs they think are right. If we can see those beliefs, we can understand them more and resent them less. In love, understanding does not make us passive, it makes us perceptive. When a partner becomes distant, irritable, or distracted, it is easy to assume they are losing interest or deliberately causing pain. Stoicism encourages us to look deeper into the context. Perhaps they are carrying worries we cannot see, or they are fighting an inner battle they do not know how to describe. Understanding is a gift we offer without demand, yet it opens a path toward genuine connection. Another practical Stoic application is staying grounded instead of being swept away by momentary emotions. This does not mean suppressing or avoiding feelings. On the contrary, it is the ability to stand firmly within them. When anger arises, instead of letting it choose our words, we observe it like a passing cloud, seeing it, naming it, and letting it drift on. When anxiety surfaces, instead of imagining the worst, we ask a simple question: which part of this is within my control? That tiny question can pull us back to the ground. In love, a grounded person is not someone with fewer emotions, but someone who refuses to let emotions destroy what they are nurturing. The ability to maintain inner stillness is one of the most meaningful gifts you can offer a relationship. When your mind is crowded with work, stress, or the weight of daily responsibilities, it becomes easy, almost automatic, to carry that tension into your conversations. Stoicism invites you to create a gentle boundary between the world outside and the love you are stepping into. Sometimes that boundary is as simple as a few slow breaths before seeing your partner. Sometimes it is a quiet pause before picking up a call. And sometimes it is a soft, honest admission: today has been heavy, but I still want to be here with you. These small gestures shift the emotional atmosphere. They soften the moment and remind both of you that connection grows best in presence, not in perfection. To keep Stoic ideas alive in daily life, rather than trapped in theory, we need rituals, habits that anchor wisdom into action. One powerful ritual is beginning each morning with a few minutes of stillness. Sit upright, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Then ask yourself, what truly matters to me today? This question works like a compass. It guides your attention back to what is essential before the world distracts you with noise and urgency. It creates a mental center from which you can act with clarity instead of reacting out of impulse. Another grounding habit is ending the day with a single line of reflection. It doesn't need to sound profound. It only needs to be honest. You might write, "Today I reacted too quickly," or "Today I listened more openly," or even, "Today I stayed calm when it was difficult." These simple notes trace your they reveal the moments when you chose intention over reactivity, and slowly, day by day, they guide you toward a more mindful, steady, and conscious way of loving. When stillness is no longer an escape but a source of strength, love becomes far more resilient. A heart that understands itself does not tremble at pointless storms or break under passing pressures. Instead, it carries an inner balance, a quiet wisdom that knows when to stand firm and when to soften, when to speak with clarity and when to listen with openness. This harmony between steadiness and gentleness becomes the foundation of a deeper kind of love. It is a love that can move through uncertainty without losing its center, a love that remains peaceful even when the world around it is chaotic, and a love that grows stronger, not by resisting challenges, but by meeting them with grace. There is a red thread that connects Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and even stretches all the way to Viktor Frankl, the modern psychologist who survived the concentration camps and wrote ideas that shook the world. That thread says that true human strength does not lie in circumstances, but in the ability to master oneself. Stoicism calls it self-mastery. Frankl calls it the last of human freedoms, the freedom to choose our response in any situation. And in love, that ability becomes the anchor that helps us love with steadiness, maturity, and understanding. When we look at relationships today, we easily see a paradox. Everyone wants to be loved gently and deeply, yet very few people learn to become the kind of person who can create gentleness and depth. We search for stability in another person before learning to stabilize ourselves. We expect our partner to understand our emotional storms, while we ourselves don't yet know how to navigate them. Stoicism reminds us that lasting love and tea come from two perfect people. It comes from two people willing to look into their own inner world before looking at each other as flaws. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it." When we read this through the lens of love, we discover an important truth. Most wounds in relationships do not come from the person we love, but from the interpretations we attach to their actions. A late reply becomes a sign of indifference. A careless comment becomes proof of fading affection. A moment of exhaustion becomes an excuse for us to think we no longer matter. Self-mastery helps us pause before assuming, breathe before concluding, and understand before reacting. It doesn't make us distrust our emotions. It helps us see them clearly. A person who has learned self-control does not love less. They love more deeply, because they do not let fear lead the way. In the modern world, where social media amplifies every comparison, where curated images of happiness shape unrealistic expectations, and where emotions can become reactions with just one tap, inner stillness becomes the most precious gift we can offer the one we love. In a noisy world, someone who knows how to be still is rare. In a hurried world, someone who knows patience is trustworthy. In a world obsessed with proving itself, someone who knows humility is someone worth staying beside. Inner stillness is not about spending hours in meditation. It is about creating a small but meaningful space within yourself, a space where you can see what truly matters. It is the ability to pause and say, "I need a few minutes to settle my emotions before we continue talking." It is the awareness that reminds you, "I'm stressed because of work today, not because of my partner." This clarity protects the relationship from unnecessary misunderstandings. It is also the courage to avoid placing the weight of the world onto the shoulders of the person you love, and the maturity to distinguish between real problems and the ones your mind amplifies out of fear or exhaustion. Viktor Frankl wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and within that space lies our freedom. And for our words to be chosen instead of unleashed. When we expand that inner space, we respond with intention rather than impulse. Self-mastery does not turn us rigid or emotionless. Instead, it makes us capable of choosing what is better for ourselves, for our partner, and for the future we are building together. A vital part of self-mastery in love is learning to see our own self with honesty. The fear of being left behind, the wounds that have not yet healed, and the expectations we'd never learned to express. When these remain hidden, we unintentionally project them onto the people we care about. We grow angry over things they never meant, feel disappointed by needs they never knew existed, and react intensely to echoes of old pain they cannot possibly understand. Stoicism does not require us to erase emotions. It encourages us to take responsibility for them, and when we finally understand the true source of our internal storms, we stop asking others to weather them on our behalf. To become more self-mastered in love, we need to cultivate subtle but powerful habits. One of them is practicing self-observation. Whenever emotions rise, ask yourself, how much of this belongs to the present, and how much belongs to the past? This question helps separate today's partner from the shadows we accidentally project onto them. Another habit is expressing emotions calmly rather than letting them erupt. "What you did made me feel anxious, but I want to understand your reasons." Simple sentences like these create connection instead of distance. Self-mastery also means learning to love without losing yourself. Someone who maintains their identity, takes care of themselves, and builds a meaningful life of their own brings a lighter, steadier kind of love. A love without clinging or fear. This is love that flows from inner fullness, not inner scarcity. Ultimately, the true question is this: what kind of person do you choose to be in love? And what wisdom will shape that journey? Only you can decide, because no one else can define the values, intentions, or inner clarity that guide the way you show up in your relationships. Stoicism simply holds up a mirror. Do you want to love through reactivity or through awareness? Do you want to be heavy or gentle, to create storms or peace? Self-mastery is not a final destination, but a daily practice, one that steadily opens the way to a deeper, more resilient, and more compassionate form of love. In the end, mature love isn't defined by the absence of conflict, but by the steady courage to face challenges with calm, compassion, and understanding. Stoic philosophy never asks you to shut down your feelings. Instead, it invites you to deepen them, to build a love that is stronger, quieter, and more grounded. It shows that cultivating inner peace naturally spreads into your relationships, influencing how you respond, listen, and connect. Each moment of clarity and self-awareness you nurture shapes the way you show up, allowing you to be present, compassionate, and steady with the one you love. If you'd like to continue exploring how ancient wisdom can guide us to live and love with more intention, feel free to share your reflections, leave a comment, and subscribe for the next chapter, because even the smallest shift in your mindset today can grow into a more resilient, meaningful love tomorrow.